what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it. When you look at Georgia Tech, Florida State, the thing that we could not account for pregame was the defensive improvement through a new defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And Santucci was an all-star last week. And his defense, and it's the same players. There were not some great personnel changes there. There's changes all over college football. I think I read that like 60% of starting quarterbacks are transfers.
Yeah, like 61%,
which is
I think.
Kind of insane. I want to dive into that more a bit later. But the point is, Santucci took a group that was god-awful against the run last year and made them look really freaking good last week, right? He put these players in better positions to succeed, and look at what happened. And so that's exactly what both Blake Baker and D'Anton Lynn are going to be trying to do on Sunday night. And I loved, because you try to think, okay, what's it going to look like? Because I haven't been able to get out to a ton of practices. And I've heard a lot of things, but like, I really enjoyed Wilson's piece in The Advocate this morning where he goes back to Blake Baker during the, LSU puts on these coaching clinics at different parts of the year, Jake. And back in the spring, he's talking to the high school coach and he's kind of giving his philosophy. And he says the number one goal, and this should be very exciting from a spectator standpoint. And I like this because it's all the aggression that LSU has lost through the years that we've been begging them to find once again. He says his number one goal as defensive coordinator, Jake, is havoc. And he highly values that statistic, havoc rate. And if you've never heard of havoc rate, it's the percentage of defensive plays that end up as a negative for the offense, essentially, right? So that's TFLs, sacks, pass breakups, interceptions, forced fumbles. Not incomplete passes, pass breakups, right? Where the players are making plays to negatively affect the offense. He says he wants LSU to have a 25% havoc rate. One of every 4 plays, Jake, he wants somebody out there making an impact. Brian Kelly saying, quote, "This is not going to be a bend but don't break defense. This is going to be a defense that keeps you guessing as to what's next." To put some numbers on it real quick, last year, LSU had a 15.6% havoc rate. That was 66th in the country. Actually a bit higher than I thought it would have been.
Yes.
In 22, it was a 15.2% havoc rate. At Mizzou, Baker was at 19% last year, 21% the year before. So basically, Baker's trying to do something in terms of his goal that he hasn't even accomplished, that he didn't even get done at Mizzou, but maybe he feels like he's got some more weapons, some more elite toys to play with here in this scheme. But what do you think, Jake, when you hear that goal of a 25% havoc rate?
That is lofty expectations.
Yeah.
Certainly from where you were a year ago. And like you said, like you haven't been there in other places, but look, you're going to have different Jimmies and Joes at LSU than Mizzou. Now, I love Mizzou. I love Drink, but that's just the way it is. Like you look at the guys put in the NFL, so we don't even have to go down that road. Like we know that. And so that feels like somebody that, one, he thinks he has the personnel to do it, and two, maybe he thinks he has to take more chances. They can't sit on their heels because a year ago, it's exactly what LSU did. I can't remember which show that we were throwing this around, but last year, they were a quarters team. Like that's what they did. Like when things got tight, like, hey, let's play quarters. And it has its place, but it's so just safe and boring and predictable. And every time that we bring up coverages, when we do it with Flynn, when you do it with Aaron Murray, they love quarters. I did it with EJ yesterday. He's like, oh, no, keep playing quarters, please. I love it. That's not what Blake Baker is. Blake Baker, we talked about it. Like, they are going to be cover one. They are going to be, like, way more aggressive in their coverage. And so I think that you're going to see some of that aggressive nature come out with who's coming on what play. Maybe still you don't call it a blitz. Maybe you're still bringing 4, but who are those 4? Yeah. Maybe you only bring 5, but where are those 5 coming from? So we're not sitting here saying that he's going to play cover 0 and bring the house every play, but I think he's going to be much more creative. You're not going to just see 4 down linemen and have 4 rush, right? You'll see 4 down linemen and you'll have 4 come, but it might be from depth. It might come from the edge. It's going to be way more creative. You're going to take more chances. It's going to be more aggressive. And so when I hear something like that, it's to tell me that he feels like through that aggression, through the playmakers that they do have, the talent that they have, that number's going to go up.
Yeah, he describes it as a vertical one-gap defense where we're creating havoc in the backfield. But the vertical one-gap defense is the thing that I love because last year, all these D linemen, and really I think for like a couple of years now, these guys were being forced into these two-gap schemes where it was all read and react. It was all like, okay, fit up, try to press, find the ball, go get the ball, which may not sound terribly odd on this. It's not odd. It's a style of defense, certainly, right? But just stop and think about it for a second and what that does to your aggression, right? If the whole idea is that you are responsible for 2 gaps, well, immediately then you can't get upfield as much, right? You have to play a bit more within yourself. You got to be a bit more passive, and you still have to try to dominate the guy in front of you to where you can get your read and then get off while being a little more passive. It's very hard to do. If you're big as hell and strong as hell, you can do it. And I'm sure, like, if you just had an elite defensive line, that's probably the defense that you could do the most with, potentially. It's kind of like those old Giants D lines. Like, everybody's like, oh, if you want to beat Tom Brady, just get pressure with 4. Duh. Okay, but, like, I mean, that's like, I don't know. If you want to fly, just grow wings. It's very hard to do. So the point is, like, if you're a bit weaker, how do you scheme up an advantage? You just give him one responsibility. Everybody has their gap, and you go balls to the wall. And even if a mistake gets made here or there, you bank on you creating offensive MAs through your aggression, creating a cut in the backfield that ends up ruining it, even if somebody accidentally went the wrong way. Forcing a quarterback. Like, think about how how Georgia Tech was dictating to DJU and how he kind of wilted when they would pressure him and play man and be like, just make the throw. Yeah. Like, if you make the throw, then you'll win.
They kind of lived in zero for a period of the game.
And even when he would make some throws, they'd be off target enough where the guy would have to go down, and they were leaving 15, 20 yards on the field. And so, like, I love that idea. Vertical, one gap, not too much responsibility. Turn your brain off and just go get physical.
As you were talking, and I agree with everything you said, great points there. I was kind of looking up the rate for blitzes last year at Mizzou because I was just interested. They blitzed 45% of the time last year. So on 507 throws, like the sample size we have, they blitzed 45% of those. The blitz came from the box 81.1% of the time. It came from the slot 12.3% of the time. They brought corner cats.
Wait, from the box 81% of the time?
81.1% of the time. So think Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks, Greg Penn. They brought the nickel 12.3% of the time. They brought corner cats 7.5% of the time. That might not sound like a high number, but when you're talking bringing corner cats, that's not something a lot of people do. That number's actually pretty big. They showed pressure and dropped 15.3% of the time. So a lot of times when they show they're coming.
Yeah.
5-man rush 56.1% of the time.
Okay.
6-man 20% of the time. 7-man pressure only 3.1. But that 6-man being 20%. Like, think about that. 6 guys coming on a pass play. 507 is the sample size, and 20% of that time you were bringing 6 guys.
These DBs got to hold up.
Yeah.
That's
now, will that change because you had 2 DBs that played in the Senior Bowl? You had different personnel out there from Mizzou a year ago.
Well, and that does seem to be one of the things that in Wilson's piece, to be fair, they get into that isn't entirely clear. Because they do talk about adapting the scheme to fit the personnel and how Blake Baker would prefer to play man. Maybe it's a situation where those numbers are a little less, or maybe not. Maybe you have your kind of zones ready to go that you feel comfortable in, but you just are going to test to see, like, okay, let's make them prove they can consistently beat man and not make mistakes, and then we can go there. But yeah, Ashton Stamps, Sage Ryan, the ball's in your court. right? If you want to make this thing work, if you want to let Blake Baker run the system that he really wants to run, like it's going to be on these defensive backs to hold it down against what should be a pretty good USC receiving core here.
I think this was the other day, we broke it down. Cover 1, cover 3, kind of about the same percentage for LSU. Will they run that much cover 1 and be that aggressive with these defensive backs with only one high safety? Or do you think they'll go to more of the cover 3 look that Mizzou, again, very like 32 and 31%? I mean,
wait, they were in cover. Okay,
cover 1 was their lead coverage last year, 32%
but it was 32
of the time.
to 1. Okay, so basically
31% for cover 3. So basically even. Would you say that LSU will skew more towards cover 3, having 3 deep safeties?
I mean, Tay, all right, we can bring you in here, and Jake, you as well. I mean, how do we feel about? I mean, who would be man to man when you're in cover 1? Obviously, Sage and Ashton. Like, but who's playing the deep safety? Is that Gilbert?
I would think Gilbert's been the deep safety at practice.
So then, what is Jordan Allen going to be in coverage there? And what is the star position doing in this then? Is Major Burns going to be manned up?
I'm thinking if the star position is going to be closer to the line, but
man up on a tight end, ideally a little bit more size for Major.
Yeah, because I don't think you want him manned up in the slot.
No.
But if they're in 2x2, he would almost have to be.
Yeah.
So if they're in 2x2, like a doubles look, you're going to have your nickel manned up. You're going to have your star manned up. You're going to have 1 deep free safety. You're going to have your 2 backers in the box, and one of the backers is going to have the back man.
Okay, see, so this goes back to the Santucci thing, right? Because it feels like you want to say, well, we'll cover 3, right? So we're not putting some of these safeties whose coverage skills we aren't super high on. Even Sage Ryan's coverage skills are better, but like we're not. There's still some concern there. We all talked about how we'd rather him be at safety, ideally, for this secondary. So the temptation with the information that we have now is to say cover 3 for me. But then again, it's a situation where it's like we just don't know how much better these guys have gotten with the new coaching. From who's the new safety coach? Olsen, right?
Yeah, Jake Olsen.
Yeah, from Jake Olsen, Corey Raymond with the corners. Like, who knows how much Sage Ryan's benefited from getting to work with him for an offseason. Yeah. Like, I know the D-line's going to be way better. I love what Gio Paez had to say coming over from Wisconsin where they ran a 2-gap scheme. He said, quote, "We don't have to think as much about fitting blocks, staying in our gap. It's go run through that dude's face and let the cards fall where they may." I love that. I love that.
No, you and I are certainly going to love that.
And it's exactly what this team has been missing. So maybe maybe it's just like you did last year in Mizzou. Maybe it's more even unless the backs prove they can hold up, and then you got to go a bit more cover 3 overall.
Yeah, and we'll try just real quickly. So cover 1, it explains itself. You're going to have man across the board, 1 high safety, and he's kind of he's a safety net in case somebody gets beat deep. He's back there, and you can play 1 robber where then one of the linebackers, he becomes a zone coverage guy kind of in the middle of the field. You still have that deep safety, but that's more 1 robber than it is 1, obviously, so that's a little bit different. And then cover 3, you probably see this in high school. So you're going to have 3 deep guys. Depending on how they line up, it could probably be your 2 corners are going to drop, and they're going to have, their quarter of the field. You're going to have your free safety drop right back into the middle of the field, so that's going to be the 3 across. Then you're going to have a flat defender on each side, probably the nickel and the star, and then you have 2 linebackers right there in the middle of the field.
Couple hook curls.
So
love user in those hook curls in NCAA 25.
So flat, hook curl, 3 deep. Again, a lot of you already know this, but just in case, kind of giving a visual of what we're talking about. So cover 3, you're going to have 3 deep guys that are keeping everything in front of them, where cover 1, much more aggressive man coverage where you only have 1 guy back there to kind of bail you out if you get beat.
Ooh, I don't know if it's the caffeine or just talking some coverages, but your boy just got goosebumps coursing through his body. Look at my legs, dude. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.